My name is Brandon Smals, and I was rejected. I guess my story really starts about the age of 2. I was adopted at that age by a pastor and his wife. The reason I had to be put up for adoption is because my biological mother was serving a prison sentence while I was in her womb, and I guess they figured that an infant probably wouldn't be a good thing to have in a prison setting. There were some complex parts of the adoption process. There were some things that the foster parents weren't cooperating on, just things that were preventing the process to go smooth. But God had a plan all along and stepped in immediately and knew what he was doing. He had moved my adoption position up to a higher list on the chart so that when my parents were looking, they had bumped me in front of a bunch of other people to see if my parents would be interested in adopting me. The other key factor in why I had to be adopted was my biological mother did a bunch of narcotics or some sort of drugs anyways while I was in her stomach, and that is also a bad thing. So there was just a bunch of things there that to a humanistic point of view, it would seem like a rough start, but it was actually the beginning of something very complex and something out of any of our control. I would say the process lasted a couple months, however long, and God just started working out details like cost, waiving court cost, waiving fees. Like I said, bumping me up on the list so that my parents could get to know me and get to meet me, and the trial run and all that just went great. And I guess at one point during one of the follow-up court hearings, I was yelling already, I want my mom. So it was something that God had just, no person could put something like this together as well as it just started unfolding. And then I would say that my parents from that point on did a phenomenal job raising me. They always made sure that the Christian materials were in part of my day. My mom did some homeschooling with me during my beginning years to try to make sure I had a good foundation. They had really searched around for good Christian schools to put me in, getting me involved in Sunday school, just about anything that a good set of Christian parents could do for their child. That's what these parents did. They accepted me, somebody that was rejected by the system. They accepted me and raised me in the Word of God from day one. I would say that at a young age I had a pretty good testimony, had pretty good biblical knowledge. Definitely liked to share Christ with my friends, definitely was all about church, then youth group, just the whole 9 yards. Just wouldn't have had it any other way. Everybody knew I had a strong testimony even at a young age. They would compliment my parents all the time. Oh, you've raised such a fine young man. That they would hear it over and over again, and oh, your kid's so respectful and all this. And it would be nice to say that the story continues going in that smooth of a direction, but as I started getting into the age of becoming a young teenager and then to a middle-aged teenager and getting into high school surroundings and more or less starting to realize that, wait, now there's something different about me. Now I'm starting to notice the people that wanted to be around me, the people that I wanted to call friends. Now there's a difference, and now there's kind of a rejection. And it's like you live your whole life at that point, even at young age, thinking, oh, this will be easy, this is how it's supposed to be. And then you start realizing now people are watching you, and now they're judging you, and now things are getting a little bit more uncomfortable. So at a young age, trying really hard to remember everything my parents said and stuff, but it's just now I've got two worlds colliding. I've got my teachings, and now I've got the real world hitting me pretty hard. And it was probably about the time that I had told my parents I was done with the Christian schools and the homeschooling. I wanted to go to a mainstream high school and see what it was like to just be with regular kids. That's about when things really started to change. I would say that it was probably my earlier high school years where I just became really like a class clown. It wasn't like I was doing things that were necessarily illegal or horrible acts or anything, but it was just more or less just shenanigans, just stuff that really irritated people, just being a goofball and trying to draw attention and really seeking people's attention and acceptance, and doing it in all the wrong ways, and still pretty at a harmless level, but definitely becoming a problem. Then noticing as I'm traveling more through my high school career, now I'm seeing my friends and stuff taking school seriously and setting up their careers, and here I am goofing off trying to make people accept me and want to be around me and do whatever it takes to make friends, because going into a secular school at that age, I was a little bit behind in what was considered cool and all that. It was toward the end of high school, maybe a year after, that things started going up to the next level, where now I'm going to parties, and it's not just riding bicycles with my friends anymore. It's now we'll go to parties, and even in the beginning stages of partying, I was more a spectator, someone who's just there to watch and see what these kids do, and it's not like I really even found anything appealing. But as time went on, and as I exposed myself to that environment more and more, I found, well, now I'm going to jump in, and now I'm going to try what they're doing, and maybe I'll fill up a cup off the keg. It can't hurt, 1 beer or 2 beers, or that joint looks kind of tasty. I bet I could rip it once or twice and be fine. But it's amazing, even with the strong upbringing and the Bible around you 24/7, the minute you let your guard down and start mingling with that crowd, Satan's right there on the side. He may know from the beginning that he doesn't have your soul because you got saved, but he can keep you distracted. And if you find yourself getting far away from God like I did, and looking for the things that were appealing to the world, God doesn't ever leave you, but he will let you have your space. And it's at that point in your life I learned that whenever he starts giving you space is when things really start getting tricky. I started going now from just a casual partier to more now of, well, who's selling this stuff and how much money can it make you? And, well, who's providing the alcohol, or who's providing the place to have these parties? Well, we can throw these parties. We can get better product. And then you start seeking acceptance from people who are considered cool in the world, the people that some people are afraid of, some people that have respect, and just the people that you think you're going to gain some social status that's completely fictional, and that's a lie anyways, but you're there in the moment and you're just wanting to fit in, and you don't realize the snowball that's rolling down the hill when you're just trying to up your social status. And then before you know it, without too much detail, you go from someone just goofing off to, well, trying the beer, and maybe I can get the supplies now you find someone who's running with really bad crowds, and it all happens so quick, and you just find yourself in situations that could have been life and death. You find yourself hanging around people that are on wanted list. You find yourself even committing criminal acts that not even 5 or 6 years ago you would have never even thought of. And it probably was a weekend in the evening time. I remember I was actually smoking weed, and I remember just needing to sit down by myself, and I sat myself down the steps and I just started crying, and I realized I needed to go home. I needed to call my dad. My dad had moved out of the state to take on a church in Mansfield, Ohio. I was still hanging down in Florida because I didn't want to move with them. I wanted to stay down and be accepted by the wrong people. And so I ran away for a while, and finally something hit me where it was time to call my dad and ask if I could come home and have a second chance to get my life together. And he willingly came and got me. A lot of similar things took place to the story of the prodigal son. So by the time he had got me brought back to Ohio and opened up their home to let me stay with them for a while and help me get a job and transportation and all that, you think that would be enough to come back to reality and come back to the Word and get close to God. But I found myself even in the earlier years of living in my new location looking for acceptance, looking for the people at work that could get the stuff, looking for friends that would party, looking for the places that reminded me of the nightclubs in Florida, and just trying to almost hold on to Florida while I was supposed to be here for a new beginning. And some of that behavior actually affected the earlier years of my marriage, bringing my wife down with it, even the earlier years of my daughter being born, just having a dad or my wife, having a husband that wasn't completely in it, and still trying to hold on to the wrong kind of acceptance, and at this point not even really knowing where these desires are coming from other than Satan just trying to keep me distracted, because once he knows he can't have your soul, he can still focus on keeping you from being productive for God. And just after a series of events that just one right after another, losing some good jobs, almost costing a marriage, and not being there for my daughter, God kind of tugged on me again and said, look, you got to knock this out. I'll get your attention one way or the other, and you may not like it, so you may just want to cooperate here soon. And in the last couple years or so, I've really decided to accept what God's calling in my life and really try to embrace what he wants to do with me. But anybody that knows me really well knows I'm not perfect. I'm not a saint by any means. I wish I was. And knows that I have a lot of work. I know I need a lot of work. But the difference is I'm ready to accept that God has a plan for me. He's put together this complex life that started at a rejection point and all along was there waiting to accept me. I just had to be willing to accept him. And that's true of everybody's life. Everybody's here for a purpose, and everybody has a story and a beginning, and he's just waiting for us to accept the calling and fully embrace it. And when we can get to that point, then we can start to see things happen. He's brought me through countless things that could have been way worse than they ended up being. He's showered me in grace, and even when I didn't acknowledge it was grace, sometimes I thought it was me being clever or me fixing problems and not even realizing that without him this whole time, I could have been in some serious trouble. And through the things that God allowed me to experience, even ones that weren't unpleasant, I've learned to have a heart for people that are going through rough times or come from a rough background. And so he's allowed me to make it through that safely so that I can have a heart and tell others who some may reject and not have time for. My name is Brandon Smals, and I am accepted.